Texans for Environmental Consulting presents an instructional video for water sampling. This standard operating procedure is applicable to the collection of representative liquid samples, both aqueous and non-aqueous, from streams, rivers, lakes, ponds, lagoons, and surface impoundments. It includes samples collected from surface depth. These are standard, typically applicable operating procedures, which may be varied or changed as required, depending upon site conditions, equipment limitations, or limitations imposed by the procedure or other procedure limitations. In all instances, the ultimate procedures employed should be documented and associated with the final report. Mention of trade names or commercial products does not constitute Texans for Environmental Consulting, Inc. endorsement or recommendation for use.
Equipment needed for water sampling standard operating procedure includes, but is not limited to, dip sampler, wooden survey stakes, measuring tape, glass sample containers with screw-tight plastic lids, ice packs, cooler, chain of custody records and custody seals, field data sheets, decontamination equipment, safety equipment, camera and film, logbook, pen, sample bottle labels, conductivity meter, dissolved oxygen test kit, and a pH meter.
The following general quality assurance procedures apply. 1. All data must be documented on field data sheets or within site logbooks. 2. All instrumentation must be operated in accordance with operating instructions as supplied by the manufacturer unless otherwise specified in the work plan. 3. Equipment checkout and collaboration activities must occur prior to sampling operation and they must be documented. 4. A chain of custody should be filled out and completed while collecting water samples. A completed chain of custody includes times samples were recorded, sample ID, and signatures. Signatures should consist of field technicians, field manager, lab supervisor, and anyone else who has handled the water samples. In addition to the previous QA procedures, 2 control samples were taken at the time of sampling. The 2 control samples taken were a field blank sample and equipment rinsate sample.
The following preparations are essential for completing a reliable water sample. 1. Determine the extent of the sampling effort, the sampling methods to be employed, and the types and amounts of equipment and supplies needed. 2. Obtain the necessary sampling and monitoring equipment. 3. Decontaminate or pre-clean equipment. Determine if the equipment is in working order. Prepare a trip blank sample for QA/QC purposes. 4. Prepare scheduling and coordinate with staff, clients, and regulatory agency if appropriate. 5. Perform a general site survey prior to site entry in accordance with the site-specific health and safety plan. 6. Use stakes or flagging to identify and mark all sampling locations. If required, the proposed locations may be adjusted based on site access, property boundaries, and surface obstructions. If collecting sediment samples, this procedure may disturb the bottom. The following steps are the standard operating procedure for a reliable water sample. 1. Mark off locations for sampling with wooden survey stakes. Samples should be taken at 10 feet intervals for a total of 50 feet. If needed, the proposed sample locations may be adjusted based on site access, boundaries, and surface obstructions. 2. Place sample jars at each stake. 3. Use the dipper to collect the first sample at the stake location furthest downstream. The dipper should be extended into the water without disturbing the submerged sediments. 4. Retrieve the dipper and place the sample in the correct sample jar, then attach the appropriate label to the jar. 5. Take the pH and dissolved oxygen measurement of the sample before sealing the lid. 6. Record the pH and dissolved oxygen. Clean the pH meter with distilled water. Throw away rinsate and broken glass from dissolved oxygen tests in appropriate trash can. 7. Be sure to seal the sample container. Place sample container in plastic bag and into cooler. 8. Use the distilled water to rinse the dipper before taking additional steps. 9. Finally, after all 4 samples have been taken, plus the 2 QA/QC samples, be sure to place all samples into a cooler. Close the cooler and attach a completed chain of custody seal. If you have any questions about additional procedures, please contact Texans for Environmental Consulting at 979-555 7645.